welcome to our next Kids STEAM Crafternoon. My name is Afton and I'm the children's librarian here at the Alexander Hamilton Library. And today we are going to be making hurricane havens. So what that means is we're going to be making little houses and then we're going to test to see if they can safely last through some hurricane winds. Now, if you're not familiar with a hurricane, it is a really strong storm that happens off over the sea when two different weather fronts kind of start mixing and they build really strong winds. And when they come in and hit land, usually in the southeast of the United States, so states like Louisiana, Florida, South Carolina, when they hit land, those storms dump tons of rain and they have really strong winds. So there's often flooding and a lot of damage that comes along with hurricanes. Here in Pennsylvania, we're lucky enough that if a hurricane comes up the coast toward us, we usually just feel it with heavy rainfall and some strong wind, but nothing like they feel down in the south. So, like I said, today we're going to be building our own little houses because we are still in hurricane season. Now, hurricane season in the United States, so in the Western Hemisphere, technically starts June 1st and ends November 30th. Since we just started November, we have a whole another month of hurricane season to go through. So far this season alone, so in 2020 alone, we've had 28 tropical and subtropical storms, 27 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. All right, so that's a lot of storms. So doing things like designing houses and buildings so that they can last through storms is becoming increasingly important. And in a lot of the southern states, they actually have new regulations for buildings that you have to build them a certain way so that they're strong enough to last through a hurricane. Now, just a little bit of trivia for today before we get started building. The strongest ever winds that were recorded making a landfall in the United States, so that means the strongest storm to actually come to land, and they measured its winds. They think that it had sustained winds, so winds that lasted more than a minute at the speed of 190 miles per hour. Now, they think that that's right because it was so strong that the wind actually blew away all of the instruments, so it destroyed all of the instruments that were measuring the wind. So that's kind of their baseline for how fast they knew the winds were going, but it may have actually been faster than that. And that was Hurricane Camille in 1969. So today, luckily, we don't typically have hurricanes with that strong of winds, but what if we did? Would your house survive the winds? Let's see today if we can figure out our own designs to last through some strong wind. Okay, so let's start our hurricane havens by thinking about the supplies that we'll need. So today, if you get one of our STEAM kits, a lot of these supplies will be in your kit, but you will need popsicle sticks. You'll need some paper to help build your house. You'll probably need scissors to cut out paper. You'll need some tape to stick everything together. And we also have left over from our last STEAM kit some dough, some very sticky salt dough that you can use to help stick your foundation down. So we suggest some sort of salt dough or Play-Doh to help your structure stay in place. You can also use tape if you don't have this. All right, so our first step is going to be, of course, thinking about your house design. Now, when we talked about hurricanes in the beginning, we talked about how often the biggest danger with hurricanes is the sustained winds. So remember Hurricane Camille with landfall wind speeds of 190 miles per hour? That's unimaginably fast. So we need to think about how your hurricane haven, or your safe home, will not only stop the wind, but let it go past so that your house will stay standing when the hurricane goes through. All right, so I'm going to get started by building the foundation of my home. Now, I'm going to do this right on the table because this is my work table in the children's area. But as usual, if you don't have a messy workspace, I suggest putting a tray, maybe like a foiled food tray underneath or something like that. You can use paper on the bottom, but it's not a very good foundation. So I'm going to get out my dough and I'm going to start building the foundation of my house. All right, to do that, I'm going to take some chunks of the dough and I'm going to stick the 4 feet for my house down into the dough. All right, now when you're building, you need to think about some key weak points in any house. All right, if wind is coming, you need to think about the foundation and how it attaches to the ground. You need to think of the rest of the house and how it attaches to the foundation. And then you need to think of things like the roof, so the roof doesn't instantly blow off as soon as the wind starts. Now you can see I'm making roughly a square shape. I might move that in a little bit. All right, so after you start adding your foundation, then think about the rest of your building. So remember, if this is a house, someone needs to be able to live in this somewhere. So you can't just have a foundation and a roof. Think of where your living space is going to be and how it will attach to your foundation. So I've got my foundation done. All right, and now it's time to start building up on the top. Next, I'm gonna get out some of my tape. You can keep using dough if you like the dough to attach stuff, but I'm actually gonna use tape instead. And I'm going to start building. All right, now you can see that my sticks are starting to kind of fall all around. So you're gonna need to think of ways to attach them so that they will stay together. All right, now I'm gonna take some tape and wrap it around all of these, and I'm gonna do the same thing to build the rest of the box for my house. All right, you may do a completely different design. I think the coolest thing about this is that we're doing something that's really practical. We have to think about how you would actually live in a house that has to survive a hurricane and how you would build that house. But we're also making something that can be a totally different design than anyone else's. So your hurricane haven may look completely different from mine, and that's pretty neat. And if you're having trouble attaching your pieces, this may be a great project to work as a team with someone else. So maybe they hold sticks while you tape, or vice versa, or a totally different way to do it. But this is a really fun one to do with other people, because then you get more ideas, and the more ideas you have, the more likely you are to find a really good one. So I'll just keep taping. We're gonna keep speeding up. All right, so I'm almost done taping. You may end up using a lot of tape. You may end up using just a little. It's totally up to you to see how you want your house to work out. So we're almost done. All right, so I've got my basic foundation ready. Let's take a look from another side. All right, so you can see we've got the basic shape ready. I may need to adjust my foundation supports a little bit. So I'll go around and adjust the foundation so that it is a little straighter, a little more solid looking. I can add more dough if I've got more dough. All right, and now I'm gonna start building the house up. All right, let's go. All right, so you can see I've cut a rectangle, and I'm just gonna see, oh, too big, so I'm going to adjust that. Now you can start by building the base of your hurricane haven. So maybe you use your construction paper and you're going to build the place where someone can actually live. That can be where you start, or you can do what I'm doing and build your foundation first and go from there. It's totally up to you where you would like to begin, because we're all going to end at basically the same place. I've got my living space now on the foundation of my house. I'm of course going to tape that down as well, because what good is a living space if as soon as a wind hits it, it blows away, right? So we need to make sure that that is also secured down. In hurricane-proof building, this is done so the walls are attached to the foundation and the roof is attached down through the walls to the foundation, which is pretty neat, using some special trusses. All right, now I'm going to take my hurricane house and I'm actually going to start building the roof right away. So for the roof, you may want to build your house nice and tall so that giants could live in it, in this case, giant ants. You can make the roof a dome, a common shape in hurricane building is making things round. Because if you think about when the wind goes around something round, it hits the round surface and then just blows around or over top of it. So you might want to consider a dome shape. I'm going to, because of my materials, I'm going to keep it fairly simple, and I'm going to use my popsicle sticks, and I'm going to make an A-frame shape, which means that it's pointed at the top. So I'm going to add my roof pieces. And for me, I'm actually going to attach them first, and then I can tape them down. Then I'm going to do the same thing around the back because I have 2 popsicle sticks left. So you also, just like a real builder, you have to consider the materials that you have to work with. If you're doing this at your house and you've got lots and lots of popsicle sticks that you want to use for this, or other building supplies like pipe cleaners or that kind of stuff, that's great. Go ahead and use whatever you'd like to put on here. But for me, I'm keeping it limited to the popsicle sticks that were in my steam kit because I kind of want to see how it will work if I have limited materials. So I've got my roof together again. My house shape itself is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to have a floor, and then I'm going to cut 2 more pieces to make the roof and tape them on. Now, I just cut 2 big rectangles. They're clearly not the right size, but that's okay. Okay, interesting. I'll trim those a little shorter. I'll tape that in. I'll show you from the other side how I'm going to tape inside. So here's from the other side of my house. I'm going to actually use my tape and go under the house. So remember how we said that there are those special trusses that attach the roof to the walls of the house? Well, we can think of this kind of in the same way. So it'll be attached underneath. Do the other side. All right, so one side is attached. Let's do the other side. All right, so I've got a very, very rough house shape ready to go. Let's look around the outside. And now it's time to test. Okay, so now it's time to test our Hurricane Haven. So we've got our house here. Again, I just left mine on the table. I'm gonna firm up my foundations a little bit. They spread out a little bit while I was building, but you can put yours in a tray if you want. You can actually, we saw online, if you put yours in a tray of some sort or a really shallow dish, you can also put some water in the bottom, and that will simulate in a real hurricane. There's often flooding or what's called a storm surge, where the waves are a lot higher coming in from the ocean and the wave just moves through onto the land. So that's going to make it even more authentic. For mine today, I'm just leaving it on our building table. But I have here, you can see, our hurricane. So this is just a big fan that we have here at the library. I'm going to get it ready to see if my house can withstand some hurricane winds. So we'll start low. So it's blowing some paper around on the table that I left beyond here, but not really much else. All right, let's see what happens when we have higher winds. So the roof is starting to move just slightly. You might be able to see right over here on the edge, it's starting to flap just a little bit. Let's see if we put it on our highest setting. Now this fan only has 3 settings. So what I'm going to do is if we get to high and nothing happens, I'm going to move it even closer and see how that affects everything. Let's check it out. All right, pretty good. So we have the roof is again starting to flutter in the breeze. Let's see what happens if the wind gusts get higher, or in this case, closer. So my my Hurricane Haven actually stood up pretty well. By using those slanted sides on the roof, it let the wind go up and over, and also because they were kind of floppy with the construction paper, it also let the winds go around to the side. We're going to try it one more time, and this time I'm going to change the angle of the winds to see if it hits the house from straight on, if that changes the result. All right, we've got our fan moved. The camera is now right in front of the house. Let's see what happens if we turn up those winds one more time. My Hurricane Haven actually worked pretty well by having a solid foundation, walls that were attached to the foundation, and a well-supported roof that also attached into the walls that then attached to the foundation. We made a pretty successful Hurricane Haven that you could use to survive a storm. Probably not this one, but this week we want to see your Hurricane Haven creation. Like we said in the introduction, hurricane season officially ends November 30th, so there's still quite a ways to go. And since we've had one of the worst hurricane seasons in history with the most hurricanes and tropical storms, this is something that, is pretty relevant and pretty important in our lives. So we wanted today to try our hand at building some of our own structures and trying out some hurricane-proof building methods. We hope that you enjoy building your Hurricane Haven, and please feel free to share the design that you made with us in the comments or with me at afrancis@ahmfl.org. Again, anyone who shares a video or a photo of you completing your STEAM activity will be entered automatically in our monthly STEAM prize giveaway. Very exciting. All right. And don't forget also that you can find most of your supplies here at the library in our STEAM kits. All right. The STEAM kits are always free and they're first come, first serve, so you can just pick them up whenever you're at the library. Just stop in the kids' room and look at the big purple table. All right. So we'll see you next time, guys.